They sold millions of records, headlined sold-out stadiums, and then they just vanished. What happens when rock stars just disappear? Not death, not scandal. They simply walk away from it all. Chart toppers who became hermits, guitar gods who chose silence over stardom. These are 12 legends who vanished from the rock scene, and you probably didn't even know about it. Grace Slick. Grace Slick retired from music in 1990 and vanished completely. The psychedelic goddess who commanded stages with White Rabbit had grown tired of the circus. By the late 80s, Slick battled alcoholism and hated the music industry's demands. Her final public performance with Jefferson Starship in Germany was a disaster due to her inebriated state. She was reportedly drunk and proceeded to insult the audience, mocking them about World War II and performing a Nazi salute. The band was forced to cancel the first night in Germany due to her condition, and the second night's performance was also severely impacted by her intoxication. She claimed rock was for angry young people. At 50, she'd outgrown the rebellion. The counterculture queen stepped away completely. But Slick didn't retreat into obscurity. She now runs a one-woman art show in Malibu, painting Alice in Wonderland scenes. The woman who sang about following the White Rabbit found her own wonderland in art. At 85, Grace Slick successfully reinvented herself far from her psychedelic past. The Everly Brothers didn't just disappear from the charts. They disappeared from each other's lives. Don and Phil Everly, who created some of music's most beautiful harmonies, stopped speaking for over a decade. The end came during a 1973 concert when Phil smashed his guitar and walked off stage, leaving Don to finish alone. What followed was silence until 1983, robbing the world of one of its greatest musical partnerships. Both brothers vanished from mainstream music. Don attempted solo work with modest success, while Phil battled depression. The duo that influenced the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel became a cautionary tale. Their 1983 reunion was emotional but brief. By then, the music world had moved on, and they found themselves performing nostalgia acts rather than creating new music. The Everly Brothers lead very private lives, and it's extremely difficult to get them to agree to an interview. Both still seem to have pretty strong voices, and they could probably tour if they wanted to. But for whatever reason, they're opting not to. While the world watched Axl Rose's antics and Slash's guitar heroics, Izzy Stradlin quietly became rock's most successful disappearing act. The Guns N' Roses rhythm guitarist slipped away in 1991, and most fans barely noticed. Stradlin grew tired of the drama, delays, and Axl's erratic behavior. While his bandmates battled in court and tabloids, Izzy simply left. His disappearance was remarkable for its completeness. No tell-all books, no bitter interviews, no desperate attempts to reclaim his spot. Stradlin released solo albums to little fanfare and lived life on his terms. He became rock's ultimate ghost, the guy who co-wrote Sweet Child O' Mine, but chose anonymity over celebrity. While Guns N' Roses imploded and rebuilt, Stradlin remained absent from the drama. His rare appearances became mythical events. In a genre obsessed with comebacks, Izzy Stradlin's commitment to disappearance became legendary. When the White Stripes broke up in 2011, Meg White didn't just leave the band, she vanished from public life entirely. The minimalist drummer who helped create garage rock's most distinctive sound simply walked away and never looked back. White's disappearance was so complete it sparked conspiracy theories. Fans couldn't believe half of the 2000s most important band could just disappear. But that's exactly what happened. While Jack White continued his prolific career, Meg White became a mystery. Her simple, powerful drumming had been the perfect counterpoint to Jack's complex guitar work. Apart, she chose complete silence. Unlike other rock disappearances driven by addiction or mental health, White's exit seemed entirely by choice. She'd conquered the rock world and decided she was done. Her commitment to privacy has been absolute. Put on Seven Nation Army, and Meg White's distinctive beat reminds you that sometimes the quietest people make the loudest impact. Most fans know David Bowie as rock's greatest chameleon, but few realize he essentially disappeared for most of the 1990s. After Tin Machine failed and his solo career stalled, Bowie retreated in a way completely uncharacteristic for rock's greatest showman. The disappearance was subtle but real. Bowie continued releasing albums, but they felt like afterthoughts. The man who'd given us Ziggy Stardust had become ordinary. This was troubling from someone who built his career on constant evolution. Bowie wasn't known for quiet periods. He was supposed to be the eternal innovator. Instead, he'd become forgettable. The music industry had changed. His personal life had stabilized, and perhaps he'd run out of characters to inhabit. One of rock's most visible artists had made himself invisible. His heart attack in 2004 seemed to wake something up, leading to his triumphant 2013 return with The Next Day. But those lost years remain fascinating. Sly Stone didn't just disappear from music, he vanished from reality. The mastermind behind Dance to the Music and Everyday People became music's most tragic missing person. Stone's decline began with heavy drug use and erratic behavior, but his complete disappearance happened over decades. By the 1980s, the man who'd commanded Woodstock was living in his car, battling addiction and legal problems. This was the artist who'd integrated rock, funk, and soul into something revolutionary. He'd broken down musical and racial barriers with infectious grooves. His influence on hip-hop is immeasurable. Yet for decades, Sly Stone existed more as a cautionary tale than a living artist. Rare sightings became urban legends. The funk pioneer who preached unity had become isolated and forgotten. Stone has made a number of live appearances in the past 6 years, but they've been bizarre, unpredictable, and erratic. The few interviews he's given have suggested that one of rock's great talents was in a sad, diminished state before he passed away recently due to prolonged battle with lung and other diseases. While other rock pioneers courted controversy, Fats Domino simply faded away. The New Orleans legend, who'd sold 65 million records, spent his final decades in virtual obscurity, content to live quietly in his hometown. Domino's disappearance wasn't driven by addiction or burnout. He'd simply had enough of touring and recording. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, he became even more reclusive, rarely leaving his rebuilt home. This was one of rock and roll's founding fathers, essential to the genre's development. Yet while Chuck Berry remained active, Domino chose silence. He'd witnessed rock's birth, evolution, and commercialization, and decided he preferred his memories to modern reality. When Domino died in 2017, many younger fans had forgotten he was still alive. His quiet disappearance had been so complete that his death felt like losing someone already gone. D'arcy Wretzky didn't just leave the Smashing Pumpkins. She disappeared so completely that her former bandmates claimed they couldn't find her. The bassist who'd been integral to alternative rock's most successful band became music's most mysterious missing person. Wretzky's 1999 departure involved disputes with Billy Corgan and fame's pressures. But rather than pursue solo work, she simply vanished. No forwarding address, no way for anyone to contact her. Corgan also infamously called her a mean-spirited drug addict who refuses to get help. When the Pumpkins planned reunion tours, Corgan claimed they couldn't locate her. Someone who'd played on multi-platinum albums had erased herself from the industry entirely. Rare interviews suggested Wretzky was living quietly, working regular jobs and avoiding anything connected to her rock star past. She'd achieved true anonymity in the digital age. Her story raises fascinating questions about the right to disappear. D'arcy Wretzky proved it was still possible to walk away and never look back. She reportedly lives in Michigan, owning and operating a horse farm, where she breeds and trains horses. When Freddie Mercury died in 1991, Queen lost more than their frontman. They lost their bassist, too. John Deacon the quiet genius behind Another One Bites the Dust, simply faded away after Mercury's death. Deacon participated in recording Made in Heaven with Mercury's final vocals, but after its 1995 release, he effectively retired. Guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor have performed as Queen numerous times in the past, but Deacon has declined to participate in any of it. There aren't even any recent photos of him that we can find. His disappearance was so thorough he refused to attend Queen's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2001. The man who'd co-written their biggest hits wanted nothing to do with the music industry. Deacon's withdrawal seemed connected to Mercury's death. Unlike his bandmates, who found ways to continue Queen's legacy, Deacon felt the band had died with Freddie. His commitment to privacy has been absolute. John Deacon remains music's most successful ghost, having walked away from one of rock's biggest brands and never looked back. Peter Green's disappearance was one of rock's most tragic losses. The Fleetwood Mac founder, whom B.B. King called one of the greatest blues players ever, essentially vanished after a drug-induced psychological breakdown. Green's descent began with heavy LSD use and erratic behavior. The man who'd written Black Magic Woman became convinced his success was evil and that he needed to give away all his money. By the mid-1970s, Green had stopped making music altogether. He underwent electroshock therapy, lived in mental health facilities, and existed in a world separate from the rock scene he'd helped create. This was a guitarist who'd influenced Gary Moore and Kirk Hammett, yet he'd rejected everything that made him special. He'd chosen madness over music. Though Green eventually returned to performing, he never recovered his early magic. His decades-long disappearance robbed the world of what could have been continued brilliance. While Peter Green's breakdown was public, Danny Kirwan's disappearance was even more complete and tragic. The Fleetwood Mac guitarist who joined at 18 and contributed to their evolution simply vanished after being kicked out in 1972. Kirwan's exit was dramatic. He suffered a mental breakdown before a concert and smashed his guitar, leading to immediate dismissal. But unlike other rock casualties, Kirwan didn't flame out publicly. He just disappeared. For decades, Kirwan lived in poverty and obscurity, reportedly homeless at times, struggling with mental health and alcoholism. The man who'd co-written Oh Well became invisible to the music world. His disappearance was so complete that when he died in 2018, few people even knew he was still alive. Here was someone who'd been an integral part of one of rock's most successful bands, yet he'd spent decades living as if his musical career had never happened. Kirwan's story is perhaps the most tragic because it represents talent completely wasted. When John Frusciante quit the Red Hot Chili Peppers in 2009, he disappeared into electronic music and spiritual enlightenment. The guitar virtuoso who created alternative rock's most beloved albums became a recluse. This wasn't his first vanishing act. After quitting in 1992, he spent 3 years isolated in his graffiti-covered Hollywood Hills home in such deplorable conditions that Johnny Depp shot a documentary about it. His 2009 departure was different. Frusciante dove into experimental electronic music that bore no resemblance to his guitar work. He explored the occult, refused to even touch a guitar for over a decade. One of rock's most gifted guitarists had entered a different dimension entirely. Fans waited and theorized, but Frusciante had drifted completely from mainstream music. His 2019 return to the Chili Peppers felt like a resurrection, but this didn't lead to a significant increase in public appearances. Frusciante continues to release music, including solo albums and collaborations, but these are often done through online platforms or smaller releases. These disappeared legends remind us that fame isn't always forever, and sometimes the greatest artists are the ones who know when to walk away. Whether driven by artistic integrity, mental health struggles, personal choice, or tragic circumstances, each of these musicians made the ultimate decision to value their privacy and peace over public adoration. In an age where celebrity seems to be the ultimate goal, These stories serve as powerful reminders that success doesn't always equal happiness. And sometimes the bravest thing a rock star can do is simply stop being one. Which of these disappearances shocked you the most? Did you even know some of these legends had vanished from the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from rock history. Until next time, keep the music alive, even when the musicians choose silence.